Social enterprise, B Corporation, certified.
I saw that.
Yeah, as of this year.
I hadn't been aware of B Corporation before.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a social kind of certification, helps you think about environmental sustainability, everything from HR to your carbon emissions to your recycling and all these types of things. So it's exciting, and we have now about 25 staff full-time. We work with about 1,000 farmers in western Uganda. So we have operations out there dealing with the sourcing of cacao. Some of that cacao comes here for chocolate. Others goes to chocolate makers in the US and Europe.
Okay, all right.
We also do beet to bar.
Is it an official cooperative or?
Yeah, so the way that we organize things is we do basically individual farmers that we contract and register so that they follow the organic practices, because we're 100% organic. They follow the fair labor practices, the quality standards, and they deliver to rural collection points that we set up in the villages.
Okay.
So we set with them a day and a location where we'll be buying each week. They come with cacao on their head, basically in these basins, as you can see.
Every week, huh?
Yeah, every week, every 2 weeks, depending on the schedule. You're familiar a bit with how cacao is produced and what it looks like and stuff?
Yeah.
So pods in Bundibujo mostly were a mix of Forastero and Trinitario varieties. It's all grown by smallholder farmers. So they're on 1 to 3 acres of land, mainly earning their living that way. We buy it fresh. So this is fresh cacao, as opposed to the dry, finished
fermented.
Yeah, exactly. So we buy from them the same day they harvest it at these rural collection points. We pay them cash on delivery, a premium price. They have no transports, no bags, no spoilage, no cost of processing. We do that to guarantee our quality. So we get it from them that same day. We weigh it, we pay them, then we collect all of that cacao, maybe like 10 or 20 tons in a day, and we bring it to our fermentery in our processing facility.
Which is not here?
Which is in western Uganda.
Oh, okay, all right.
So it's nearby the farms.
Yeah.
Used to be a stone's throw from the farms, and because of weather, we shifted to Kasese, which is a bit further south, drier, which is easier for us.
Yeah.
So we collect still in Bundibujo region, which is on the Congo border, about 8 hours west of here. And then we transport to Kasese for processing, which you can see pictures of here. And then from there, so this is a collection point where we'll buy cacao. That's probably like 2 or 3 tons worth of fresh cacao.
Excellent.
A lot of juice and water coming off.
Yeah.
And then by the time it gets to our facility, we ferment it in centralized boxes.
Is this?
So this is our drying facility.
Yeah.
So before it gets to this point, all that cacao, fresh cacao, really super wet, sticky, gets put into wooden boxes, 500 kilos each, for a period of 6 to 7 days. And what's happening is the juice and the sugar on the outside of the bean is starting to ferment because of bacteria from the hands and the machete, basically starting the process of producing alcohol.
Yeah.
And that's killing the beans and helping us develop the chocolate flavor, the precursors to chocolate. So we do that for a period of 6 to 7 days. They're tracking everything, gets up to about 50 degrees Celsius in those boxes. They're turning it to make sure we get consistent fermentation across all of the beans in the box. And once they're done with that, then they'll bring it out to the drying beds.
Is that one reason that you collect it and then ferment it yourself, is to have consistent fermentation and flavor?
The difference is a number of other people do it in the world, or other exporters, they'll buy
fermented
beans, and then in our case we have 1,000 farmers, right?
Right.
It's 1,000 different, basically flavors of cacao, because the processing has an impact on the flavor.
Sure.
And so we like to collect it fresh, and that's in this scenario when Bundibujo is a very wet climate with theft and these different things. It's actually also quite beneficial for the farmer And so we collect it all at once and process it in bigger batches,
Yeah.
which allows us to say to our customers, every time you buy our cacao, you're getting this flavor, as opposed to 1,000 different flavors
Random,
mixed together. So
that's
that helps us kind of ensure the quality of the cacao and helps us ultimately gain a premium price in the marketplace for that cacao. Also makes it more enjoyable for us to use it here.
Sure.
So we know what we're dealing with,
Yeah.
we control the food safety, all those types of things are well handled.
Consistency.
Yeah. So once it's done in the boxes, we'll bring it out to drying beds. Okay. And so it'll take another 6 or 7 days here. They're turning it and raking it every 30 minutes to an hour to ensure that airflow gets consistent around the cacao. To dry it up, basically, if you say that at this collection point we are buying about 10 tons of cacao fresh, by the time we're done drying it and all that moisture and juices come off, to the point where it's stable, we're left with about 3 tons of dry cacao that's ready to be produced into chocolate. So it's a long process of weight loss and moisture evaporating out of that cacao. And we dry it on the beds where it's hand sorted to about 6 or 7% moisture, and that's when we know we're confident it's kind of like stable. We can store it in a warehouse for a year or 2 years without any problems of mold or pests or things like that.
Right. Awesome.
So we'll dry a bunch of batches as we're going throughout the season. The season is starting in August. We normally finish April, May. We try and be there throughout the year for the farmers, as opposed to just in the main crop. And we'll produce these batches and then mix and arrange them in a way to get that consistent flavor and product. We'll store it for a bit to let it settle, let some of the acid kind of get out of the beans. And then once it's stored for a period of a few weeks or a few months, we're ready to ship it, either export or to our factory here. So we're producing somewhere around 100 tons of cacao, up to 150 tons in a season. And roughly, majority of that is going for export. We're bringing 10, 15 tons here to the chocolate factory to get produced into either chocolate or separately a cocoa butter and powder processing on a much smaller scale. But our goal really at the heart of it is how can we buy cacao from more farmers at a very premium price. Our mission, our social mission is really economic. It's how do we improve the price and the income of the farmer, reduce some of the risk that they're facing. And for us, working with really premium chocolate makers and producing chocolate ourselves are just avenues in order to ultimately get back to the farmer and help them stabilize that price. And so we're pretty consistent in terms of what we offer at the farm gate and reliable in terms of the pricing, as compared to the kind of the bulk and commodity markets, which fluctuate by the week, basically. Because all of those folks are trading in an international marketplace. Whereas us, when we agree with one of our customers in the U.S., Uncommon or Rocca Chocolate or somebody like that, it's the same price every time. Everybody knows what they're getting. They have full transparency down to the individual farm, and we can kind of guarantee that the farmer is going to get, has a price floor and has some stability.
That's amazing.
So that's kind of generally what happens out in western Uganda.
And you're exporting powder and nibs and?
The majority of what we export is the dried cocoa beans.
The whole bean,
and then chocolate. So we do some powder, some butter, but it's a bit tricky because we need butter here for our factory. And so we're left with powder, and the market for super premium powder is minimal. So we have exported some to Europe, but smaller scale. And so what we don't ship out comes to Kampala, to our bean to bar factory. It's quite similar to some smaller operations in the U.S. But basically, we have a capacity here to do about 8,000 chocolate bars in a month. We do chocolate bars. We do some chefs' product lines for home chefs and restaurants. and then we do small kind of bonbons and confections for retail chocolate.
Okay, great.
So process starts roasting here. So the cacao comes in. We roast it for 20 to 30 minutes. We have different roast profiles depending on the cacao flavor that we're working on. So typically in Bunibuja we're producing 2 types of flavors. You see on the product line a Semoliki chocolate bar and a Ranzori. Those are the 2 different cacaos that we normally produce, which are kind of determined by the fermentation rate.
Okay.
So when we come to roasting, we have different roast profiles that help us accentuate and develop the flavor in different ways. And so we're, coffee roaster. It's pretty standard. We'll charge it. We'll dump in 15 kilos at a time. It's a delicate, low temp roast, so we'll do probably 120 degrees Celsius roasting temperature for a period of around 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. Tasting the beans as we go. We can head in.
Okay.
And ultimately, kind of dumping them out. We'll do 4 or 5 roasts in a go, which will help us kind of put together a batch of chocolate. So this is a beauty that we brought in from Turkey. We use it for roasted coffee, which we do here as well, in the same region. And then for all of our cacao. Even the cacao that we send to get pressed into butter and powder. So batch size kind of allows us to get that consistency in the roast and to kind of dial in our temperatures to make sure we're getting the same flavors for the chocolate bars each time. During roasting, we get some weight loss so that residual moisture in the cacao evaporates off.
Right.
So there's a bit of weight loss, and as well, the beans will puff slightly. And that will allow us to remove the shells more easily. So basically, we're developing flavor here. So I would say the precursors to flavor are the genetics of the trees on the farms, right, the terroir. Okay, the processing that happens in Bunibujo and Kisese in terms of the fermentation. Roasting is probably the next one. Okay, and so our cacao that is used in different chocolate factories, everybody has their own take on how to present that in a final chocolate. And roasting and processing, you'll find, has a pretty significant impact on how people show what that cacao tastes like.
Yeah.
So it's super critical part of the process. From here, we're going to the winnower. Okay. Basically, what's happening in the winnowing machine, you'll see some. So this is raw cacao. Okay. Actually, some of our lower grade stuff that we would press. Okay, but these beans will get popped open, and we're left with nib. Okay, and so when they puff up in the roaster, that helps us to separate the shell, which is the bitter, not so nice part. Okay, we can use this for tea or for mulch on the farms, and we're left out of this machine with the nib, which is the core of the chocolate. That's the chocolate flavor that we'll get out of the refiners. So basically, beans come in, roasted beans come in, they're cracked into a bunch of small pieces, and then a blower will remove and blow off the lighter weight shells and leave us with the heavy nib. Okay, so you seeing 10 tons goes to 3 tons there.
Yeah.
We lose a few, grams here. Again, when we remove the shells, that's another about 20 to 25% of the weight, which comes off of that cacao. So those shells, we try to make use of them as much as possible because it's a decent amount at the end of the day. From there, we're left with nib, and that nib basically goes directly into our refiners. And we can come in, we're going to put on our hairnets.